Hello everyone, welcome to Michigan Man MTG, and today we're ranking the Mythic rares from Marvel Spider-Man. So we only have 15 in this set because it's a smaller set, less than 200 cards. But before we dive in, remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this throughout Marvel Spider-Man preview season and beyond. Alright, so I've got coming in at number 15, Spider-Verse for 3 and 2 red mana. You get an enchantment. The legend rule doesn't apply to spiders you control. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you may copy it. If you do, you may choose new targets for the copy. If the copy is a permanent spell, it gains haste. Do this once each turn. So I think the problem with this card is it really, the legendary rule only applies to spiders. Otherwise, it would be higher on my list. The copying thing is nice, but it has to be from anywhere other than your hand to get the copy. So for that reason, I've got it at 15. Next, we've got Cosmic Spider-Man for a mana of each color. Legendary creature, Spider Human Hero, 5/5, flying, first strike, trample, lifelink, haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, other spiders you control gain flying, first strike, trample, lifelink, haste until end of turn. Again, the problem here is it's 5 mana of different colors, and it's hard to do that even if we've got a lot of dual lands in standard, and because of that, it's 14th. Alright. Coming in at number 13, I have Mr. Negative for 5, a white and a black mana, legendary creature, human villain, 5/5, vigilance, lifelink, and Dark Force inversion. Whenever Mr. Negative enters the battlefield, you may exchange life totals with target opponent. If you lost life this way, draw that many cards. So I'm looking at Mr. Negative as he's going to be a good commander card. For standard though, 7 mana is just too high, and the reality for us is even if we're reanimating something, we've got better reanimation targets right now in standard. Coming in at number 12, I've got Dr. Octopus, Master Planner for 5, a blue and a black mana. Again, human scientist villain for 8. Other villains you control get +2/+2. Your maximum hand size is 8. At the beginning of your end step, if you have fewer than 8 cards in your hand, draw cards equal to the difference. So, very powerful card, but again, I think it's more of a commander card. And 7 mana in standard is very difficult. Again, I guess if you're trying to reanimate this, then it's a little bit easier. And some of the stuff that you're going to get with a card, the other villains you control get +2/+2. I mean, it's got to kind of be in a villain deck to really take full advantage of Dr. Octopus. And I don't know if we're going to have a viable villain deck right now in standard. Maybe a year from now, when we get another Marvel set, we'll have more villains. Maybe it's more likely that Dr. Octopus could see standard play. But I think right now, he's going to see limited to no standard play. But will be good in commander. Alright, number 11, I've got Imposter Syndrome for 4 and 2 blue mana. You get an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary. A great card on the surface. The problem is it's 6 mana. And in a deck where you're going to be dealing combat damage to your opponent, you're probably not playing a 6 mana card if you're playing a mid-range deck or if you're playing a aggro deck. So this is, unfortunately, the cost is just too high to make it really viable in standard. At number 10, I've got Behold the Sinister 6 for 6 and a black mana. You get a sorcery and return up to 6 target creature cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. So 7 mana for this is a lot, but you get up to 6 creatures, and because of that, I've got it rated at number 10 because it is a good reanimation target. Now, I would assume that if this does see standard play, that it's going to be in a deck where we are, ramping to get to 7 mana, and we are doing things to mill things into the graveyard, and then hopefully maybe on turn 5, if we're lucky, we can play this and get 6 creatures back from the graveyard. But again, the problem is a lot of things have to go right for this really to work well. Alright, coming in at number 9, I've got Anti-Venom, Horrifying Healer For 5 white mana, you get a legendary creature, Symbiote Hero, 5/5. Whenever Anti-Venom enters the battlefield, if you cast him, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And if damage would be dealt to Anti-Venom, prevent that damage and put that many +1/+1 counters on him. So my hesitation here, this is a really good card. Okay, basically it's got indestructible if it's damage that's going to be dealt to it. Obviously, most black removal spells are going to be able to take this out. And that high cost of 5 white mana is probably just too much for standard, but I like the card on its surface. Certainly a card that probably has more commander playability than standard playability. That ability, if you cast it, to get a target creature card from your graveyard and put it on the battlefield. Again, really good ability on him, but again, the 5 mana is the problem, all in white. And number 8, I've got Web of Life and Destiny for 6 and 2 green mana. You get a enchantment with Convoke, and your creatures can help cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting this spell pays 1 mana of that creature's cost. Okay, and that would be colorless mana, or potentially even green mana if it is a green creature. So at the beginning of combat on your turn, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So I can see this getting down to just a few mana, but maybe by turn 4 or 5 you're able to cast this just for a couple of mana because you've got enough creatures out to do that. And then at the beginning of combat, you're going to be hopefully adding a creature to the board every turn. And if it's in the right build, I really do think this is a card that can have serious impact in standard. But again, it's going to have to be in a go wide strategy where you're getting this down, and then every single turn you're getting those creatures out of it. That's why I've got it at number 8. Coming in at number 7, I've got Gwenom, Remorseless. For 3 and 2 black mana, you get a legendary creature that's a Symbiote Spider Hero and is a 4/4 with Death Touch and Lifelink. And whenever Gwenom attacks until end of turn, you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may play cards from the top of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life rather equal to its mana cost rather than paying its mana cost. So Gwenom, if you're playing stuff off the top of your deck, you're going to play life for that, but she's got lifelink. So the idea here is you're going to gain life over the course of the game. You can play cards from the top of your library, but you're going to be playing life for those cards rather than mana. And in the right deck, and when we do have a life gain deck in standard right now, but it's mostly in white. But I can see Gwenom, Remorseless, being a part of that deck, and it becomes something that, is your top-end finisher where you're bringing this in. She attacks, and then at that point, you get to start casting things from the top of your library. And if you've got an extra 10 or 15 mana over the course of the game, then it's not really all that big of a deal to pay the cost. That's why I've got her at number 7. Coming in at number 6, I've got Gwen Stacy and Ghost Spider. Okay, so this is our first dual-sided card. Now, with all the dual-sided cards from the set, you can play either side of the card. So if you get it in the late game, you can play Spider Ghost. You get it early in the game, you can play Gwen Stacy. So let's look at the Gwen Stacy side first. For 2 mana, 1 and a red, you get a legendary creature that's a human performer hero and is a 2/1. And when Gwen Stacy enters the battlefield, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as you control this creature. And then for 2, a blue, a red, and a white mana, you can transform Gwen Stacy into Ghost Spider, but only activate that as a sorcery. So early in the game, I'm playing this for 2 mana. I'm getting the card that I can exile and hopefully play, in a turn or 2. And then late in the game, I'm getting Ghost Spider. And Ghost Spider, again, is 2, a blue, a red and a white mana. Legendary creature. It's a spider human hero and is a 4/4 with flying, vigilance, and haste. So really solid abilities on this. And whenever you play a land from exile or cast a spell from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on Ghost Spider. Remove 2 counters from Ghost Spider, exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. So again, I think, the combination of them together, is my number 6 choice here. But individually, I don't think either of the sides are that great, meaning that they're not better than some of the things we've already talked about. But together, because of the flexibility, that's why I've got it at number 6. Coming in at number 5, I've got Eddie Brock for 2 and a black mana. You'll legendary creature that's a human hero villain and is a 3/3. When Eddie Brock enters the battlefield, return target creature card with mana value 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So Eddie Brock, 3/3, kind of generic. Return a 1-drop from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is nice. So maybe your opponent killed your 1-drop early in the game. You cast Eddie Brock, you get to bring it back. And then for 6 mana, 3, a black, a red, and a green mana, you can cast Venom, Lethal Protector, legendary creature, symbiote hero villain, 5/5, menace, trample, and haste. And whenever Venom attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, draw X cards. Then you may put a permanent card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, where X is the sacrificed creature's mana value. So the upside of Venom here is why I'm casting this at number 5. Eddie, probably in most cases, you're not going to be able to get that 1-drop back. But in the mid to late game, when you're casting Venom, Venom is a very powerful card. And if you've got things to sacrifice, you're going to be able to draw lots of cards. And because of that, I think this is why Venom and Eddie Brock are number 5. All right, coming in at number 4, I've got Peter Parker for 1 and a white mana. Legendary creature that's a human scientist hero, 0/1. When Peter Parker enters the battlefield, create a 2/1 green spider creature token with reach. And then for 1, a green, white, and blue mana, you can cast the Amazing Spider-Man, legendary creature, spider human hero with vigilance and reach, and is a 4/4. Each legendary spell you cast that's 1 or more colors has web slinging for a green, a white, and a blue mana. And that's really why I think this is our 4th best card here. Peter Parker, on the surface, not really a great card. You're getting 2 creatures, but Peter Parker is really weak. But if you are casting the Amazing Spider-Man side or transforming him into the Amazing Spider-Man, then under those circumstances, I think 4 mana for Amazing Spider-Man is appropriate. And that web-slinging ability of casting any of your legendary creatures for, a green, a white, and a blue mana, I think that is reasonable as long as you've got things you can target and bring back to your hand. Coming in at number 3, I've got Miles Morales, Ultimate Spider-Man. So Miles Morales, 1 and a green mana, legendary creature, human citizen hero, 1/2. And when Miles Morales enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So you play this on turn 2. Maybe you played your Lionel War Elf on turn 1. You give your Elf a +1 counter. You give Miles a +1 counter. So he's a 2/3. Okay, so reasonable, in a deck that is wanting to put +1/+1 counters on things, Miles Morales does a great job of providing those counters. Then you get, if you pay the 6 mana, you get the Ultimate Spider-Man. For 3, a red, a green, and a white mana, legendary creature, spider human hero, 4/3, with first strike and haste. And he has camouflage. For 2 mana, put a +1/+1 counter on Ultimate Spider-Man. He gains hexproof and becomes colorless until end of turn. When you attack, double the number of each kind of counter on each spider and legendary creature you control. So in a deck where you've got spiders, legendary creatures, you can double the number of +1/+1 counters you've got every time you are attacking with Ultimate Spider-Man. And I think because of that, that's why I've got this at number 3, because I think this is a really powerful card that in the right build, really could be a player in Standard. Next, at number 2, I've got the Soul Stone for 1 and a black mana. Legendary artifact. It's an Infinity Stone. It's indestructible, and you can tap it to add black mana. And for 6 and a black mana, exile a creature you control. Harness the Soul Stone is the ability then. Once harnessed, it has Infinity ability is activated. Okay, and its Infinity ability is at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay, so I think this is a really great mana rock for 2 mana. You're going to play this on turn 2, and then late in the game you're going to harness the Soul Stone, and then you start bringing stuff back from the graveyard. So I think this is of the cards from Marvel Spider-Man, this is the one I think is probably going to see the most play across formats because it fits into pretty much any format. And at number 1, I've got Norman Osborn for 1 and a blue mana. Legendary creature that's a human scientist villain. He's a 1/1, and Norman Osborn can't be blocked. Whenever Norman Osborn deals combat damage to a player, he connives, which means you draw a card, then discard a card. If you discard a non-land card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and then you can transform a Norman Osborn for 4 mana, 1, a blue, a black, and a red mana. You can transform him. Again, you can only do this as a sorcery, but when you do, you get the Green Goblin, and the Green Goblin can also be cast for 1, a blue, a black, and a red mana. You get a legendary creature that's a goblin human villain, and is a 3/3 with flying and menace. And spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 less to cast. And you have Goblin Formula. Each non-land card in your graveyard has Mayhem. The Mayhem cost is equal to its mana cost. So you get to the ability to cast a card from your graveyard for its Mayhem cost if you discarded it this turn. So anytime you discard a card, you can play it for the Mayhem cost that turn. Timing rules still apply, but the ability to do this turn after turn after turn, especially if you're, right now we've got the VV deck in Standard that is doing this constantly, where it's draw, discard. Well, Green Goblin in that deck helps the deck significantly because anything you're putting in the graveyard, you're able then to bring back on that turn if you would like to. And I think that's a really powerful ability, and that's why I've got Norman Osborn as my number 1 choice for Marvel Spider-Man. Thanks for staying to the end of the video. Okay, so those are my picks for the best Mythic rares from this set. I'll be back tomorrow with a video that's going to look at the best rares, and later in the week I'll have a common and uncommon video talking about the best cards for Standard from Spider-Man. So thanks for staying to the end of the video, and I will see you in the next one.